Another question. I agree that a man should avoid drama queens, but what advice is there for a traumatized woman who has baggage and had many husbands? Should she become independent in order to pay for therapy and healing and make sure to avoid marriage? It's okay to say don't marry this woman, but you also have to complete the picture. What is she supposed to do? Usually, Islam doesn't encourage a woman to be single and independent. So should she somehow cease to exist or live in exile? This is taken from the video, Many Men Type Women After Islam. And I thought I answered that in that video too. I don't know if the person looked at the video from beginning to end. I believe this may be a sister who may have wrote this question, but Allah knows best. But the answer was there. The answer was there. If that woman who is suffering from trauma like this has no concern to fix her, to deal with her traumas, to whatever her traumas may be, to deal with them in an effective manner, to better herself, then men should not be shamed into marrying these types of women, because the ramifications as it relates to marriage to them are great and grave, especially when children become involved. Your lineage is cut off. Your lineage could very well be cut off with a woman playing games with you and your children, giving your child her last name instead of your last name. The 9-time married sister that I was referring to in the video did that. So your very lineage is in jeopardy. Don't marry these types of women if they're not trying to deal with who they are. They're demons in the closet. Why should you care who marries them? You don't care about the 40-year-old virgin sitting up in Egypt who would be a much better wife to this woman that had 9 opportunities. You don't care about her. So why should you care about this woman that had 9 opportunities, 10 opportunities, 12 or 13 opportunities? You got some sisters that's running around like that. So they got to deal with themselves. They got to rectify themselves. And they have to make themselves worthy of marriage, being with a good man. They have to build themselves up to that. And if they're not even trying to, then why do you have concern about what happens with her? You're not going to be worried about her on Yom Kippur, and you're not worried about women that are much, much better than her that are right here in this dunya right now. You're not worried about it. So you're going to be concerned about this type of woman who in marriages displays no taqwa, but these women over here sitting up in Yemen and Egypt and all these places that reach a certain age and can't get married and are religious and would clearly be good women. You're not concerned about them? Come on.
Salaam Alaikum. Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies.
Assalamu alaikum, family. So the brother Najib Al Anjelesi, he gave this question and answer series that he did on his channel, and I really enjoyed the question and answers and the way that he answered them, because I pretty much agreed with pretty much everything that he said. However, there was one glaring question that I had. So before we get into that question, let's watch some of what he said in that particular question and answer.
The sister states, Allah allows divorce but does not love it. Allah allows divorce and does not love it. That's the claim. That is based off a hadith, Abghadul halal ilallah at-talaq. The most hated of that which is permissible to Allah is the divorce. This particular narration is collected by Abu Dawood in his Sunan, likewise by Ibn Majah in his Sunan. And Al-Hakim also collected it. Al-Hakim declared it to be authentic, mistakenly. And you have A'imma that differed with him on that grading of this narration. We have Abu Hatim and Al-Imam Ad-Daraqutni that clearly spells out that no, there's some irsal in this particular narration, meaning the hadith is mursal, and the mursal hadith is a hadith, a particular type of weak hadith. Right? For the students of the science of hadith, they know exactly what I'm referring to. So much so that Sheikh Al-Imam Al-Albani, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, graded this particular narration to be da'if. It's weak. It's weak. So unless you have something else to state that Allah hates divorce, then that is something that we probably shouldn't run with, shouldn't understand. Now, but even with saying that, the scholars of the past, when they explain this particular narration, they don't explain it to be literal. What they state is that what is intended by it is that because the talaq, it is an action that is allowed, but it does not bring about a reward on account of doing it. You don't get rewarded for divorcing your wife. Nor are you brought closer to Allah by divorcing your wife. Right? You're not brought closer to Allah by divorcing her, nor are you rewarded for divorcing her. So this is what they state is meaning by disliked by Allah. That you don't get those two things. But now if we were to look at marriage, are you rewarded for marriage? Are you brought closer to Allah by way of marriage? Both answers are yes, and that doesn't matter if you're marrying 1, 2, 3, or 4. When you marry a second wife, you are brought closer to Allah, and you are rewarded for marrying a woman. Why? Because marriage is an act of worship. Marriage is an act of worship. So much so the Prophet ﷺ even explained to us every time we come to our wives intimately, we're rewarded for that. We get rewards for that. It doesn't matter if which wife it is, the one that you initially married or the one that came later on, and that's for so on. If she is your wife and the hukum is that she is your wife, you're married to that woman, every time you have relations with her, you are being brought closer to Allah.
So we heard what Brother Najib had to say with regards to this. It was, in my opinion, a really excellent answer. But I want to deal with this one part because it deals directly with our people. And that's when he said this part right here.
The scholars of the past, when they explain this particular narration, they don't explain it to be literal. What they state is that what is intended by it is that because the talaq, it is an action that is allowed, but it does not bring about a reward on account of doing it. You don't get rewarded for divorcing your wife. Nor are you brought closer to Allah by divorcing your wife. Right? You're not brought closer to Allah by divorcing her, nor are you rewarded for divorcing her.
Understood. You do not get rewarded for divorcing your wife. So my question is there a point, a time where divorce becomes wajib? As you know, in the black community, we have suffered greatly from the trauma that has been inflicted on us by white supremacy. We have an outrageous simp culture that has inflicted our men through black feminism, rampant single motherhood, generational single motherhood now. You know, the music, and black men tend to stay in these outrageously toxic relationships way too long, much more than black women. Black women divorce at an 80% clip. And as a matter of fact, they're the only demographic that divorces more than they get married. So in light of certain hadith, like the hadith of Ibrahim alayhi salam to his son, you know, change the threshold of your gate, and other hadith, does it become wajib, or is it blameworthy, or will you be punished if you do not divorce these women who are really not worthy of marriage to begin with? And Allah knows best, and I'm asking this because, of course, this is something that we are greatly afflicted with. Our men tend to try to salvage unsalvageable relationships. So I hope you understood the question, Brother Najib, and we look forward to your answer. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Paper gold. You see, black folks are chumps. If America were to tell you to bring all the rocks in this country to her, and she'll give you $1 million for it, you'll do it. And the next day she'll tell you we're using rocks for currencies, chump.